Imprapanna Jnanam cha tattva vishayam sahadharmam yatra Naradanam bhagavato vitarantya mushya Samohita vitataya bhatamaya yate Ye bhyartitam apichano nirgatim prapana Jnanam cha tattva vishayam sahadharmam yatra Naradanam bhagavato vitarantya mushya Samohita vitataya bhatamaya yate Ye bhyartitam apichano nirgatim prapanna Jnanam cha tattva vishayam sahadharmam yatra Naradanam bhagavato vitarantya mushya Samohita vitataya bhattamaya yate. Everyone can chant.
येऽभ्यर्थितामपि च नो नृगतिं प्रपन्ना ज्ञानं च तत्त्वविषयं सहधर्मं यत्र नाराधनं भगवतो वितरन्त्यमुष्य सम्मोहिता विततया भतमायये याते
येऽभ्यर्थिताम् अपि च नो नृगतिं प्रपन्ना ज्ञानं च तत्त्वविषयं सहधर्मं यत्र नाराधनं भगवतो वितरन्त्यमुष्या सम्मोहिता विततया बतमाय याते.
Anyone else? Okay.
Krishna.
Oh.
Hare Krishna.
येऽभ्यर्थितम् अपि च नो नृगतिं प्रपन्ना ज्ञानं च तत्त्वविषयं सहधर्मं यत्र नाराधनं भगवतो वितरन्त्यमुष्य सम्मोहित विततया बाधमाययाते. कृष्ण.
Hare Krishna. Ye bahiratitam apicha na gatim prapanna jnanam cha tattva vishayam sahadharmam yatra naradhanam bhagavato bhitaranti amusha sammahita bhitataya bhatamaya yate. Hare Krishna.
हरे कृष्ण ये अभ्यर्थिताम् अपि च नोनृगतिं प्रपन्ना ज्ञानं च तत्त्वविषयं सहधर्मं यत्र नाराधनं भगवतो वितरन्त्यमुष्य सम्मोहिता विततया बतमाययाते. हरे कृष्ण.
Anyone else? Okay, word for word translation. Yea, those persons. Abhyartitam, desired. Api, certainly. Cha, and. Na, by us, Brahma and the other demigods. Nirgatim, the human form of life. Prapana, have attained. Jnanam, knowledge. Cha, and. Tattvavishayam, subject matter about the absolute truth. Sahadharmam, along with religious principles. Yatra, where? Na, not. Aradhanam, worship. Bhagavata, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vitaranti, perform. Amushya, of the Supreme Lord. Samohita, being bewildered. Vitataya, all-pervading. Bhata, alas. Mayaya, by the influence of the illusory energy. Te, they. Translation. Lord Brahma said, my dear demigods, The human form of life is of such importance that we also desire to have such life. For in the human form, one can attain perfect religious truth and knowledge. If one in this human form of life does not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his abode, it is to be understood that he is very much affected by the influence of external nature. Purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Brahmaji condemns very vehemently the condition of the human being who does not take interest in the personality of Godhead and his transcendental abode Vaikuntha. The human form of life is desired even by Brahmaji. Brahma and other demigods have much better material bodies than human beings, yet the demigods, including Brahma, nevertheless desire to attain the human form of life because it is specifically meant for the living entity who can attain transcendental knowledge and religious perfection. It is not possible to go back to Godhead in one life, but in the human form, one should at least understand the goal of life and begin Krishna consciousness. It is said that the human form is a great boon because it is the most suitable boat for crossing over the nescience ocean. The spiritual master is considered to be the most able captain in that boat, and the information from the scriptures is the favorable wind for floating over the ocean of nescience. The human being who does not take advantage of all these facilities in this life is committing suicide. Therefore, one who does not begin Krishna consciousness in the human form of life loses his life to the influence of the illusory energy. Brahma regrets the situation of such a human being. Ye vyartitam api chano nirgatim prapanna jnanam cha tattva vishayam sahadharmam yatra naradanam bhagavato vitarantyamushya samohita vitataya bhattamaya yate. Lord Brahma said, "My dear demigods, the human form of life is of such importance that we also desire to have such life. For in the human form, one can attain perfect religious truth and knowledge. If one in this human form of life does not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his abode, it is to be understood that he is very much affected by the influence of external nature." Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine. Hare Krishna. Thank you everybody for attending. This is a interesting verse with an idea that I think we've all heard before. I just wanted, before I start, I wanted to address one little sentence in the purport where Prabhupada says, of course, you can't expect to go back to Godhead in one life. Now, we've heard Srila Prabhupada say that it is possible to go back to Godhead in one life. So I don't think he's contradicting himself or saying anything outrageous. It's just that generally speaking, it doesn't happen in one life. We're all in Krishna consciousness now. It seems like we took to it in this life, but we don't know if we'd been practicing in previous lives. And of course, we can be very hopeful about what happens at the end of this life, but we also can't underestimate the need of perfection and love and surrender required to actually return back to Godhead. So there's hope to do the business in one life, but generally it's a long haul and we should be prepared for that. So I think that's what Prabhupada is saying here. Not that we shouldn't strive to do it in one life or that it's impossible to do it in one life, but generally it's a multi-life project. But he says, at least we have to start it. So we're doing that. But anyway, the real thing, there's two parts of this verse. The first two lines is that Lord Brahma is saying that the human form of life is so awesome, such an opportunity, such a great blessing, that even he and the demigods are hankering for it. And the second half is that Naradanam Bhagavato Vitantya Mushya Samohita Vitataya Bhattamayate. And if those who have the boon, the benediction of this human form of life, but don't take advantage of it, like Prabhupada said, at least start the process. So if you have that opportunity of the human form of life and you don't take it, then that's condemned. And Lord Brahma vehemently condemns such persons. One time Prabhupada said that if someone doesn't take to Krishna consciousness, he's unfortunate. But if someone has the opportunity to take to Krishna consciousness or has taken to Krishna consciousness and then gives it up, then he's the most unfortunate. So we could say that about those in the human form of life. Everyone in this material world is more or less condemned for being a criminal and a rebel against the Supreme Personality of Godhead, trying to take his place, trying to avoid serving him. We're all condemned. But if someone comes to this human form of life and doesn't take that opportunity, he's the most condemned. And Prabhupada explains the value of the human form of life by paraphrasing a very nice verse from the Uddhava Gita. I wanted to read that verse, the actual verse, where Prabhupada's saying that the human form of life is the perfect boat for returning back to Godhead. This is from the Uddhava Gita, chapter 20, text 17. Nridehamadyam sulabam sudurlabam plavam sukalpam guru karnadaram mayanukulena nabasvateritam puman bhavabdim nataret saatmaha. The human body, which can award all benefits in life, is automatically obtained by the laws of nature, although it is a very rare achievement. This human body can be compared to a perfectly constructed boat, having the spiritual master as the captain and the instructions of the personality of Godhead as favorable winds impelling it on its course. Considering all these advantages, a human being who does not utilize his human life to cross the ocean of material existence must be considered Atmaha, the killer of his own soul. So in the purport, Prabhupada also said that you're committing suicide if you don't utilize this human form of life. So this is also interesting verse that Nrideham adyam sulabham sudurlabham. It's simultaneously easy to obtain and at the same time difficult to obtain. How is it easy to obtain? Because it happens naturally in the course of our cycle of samsara. If I happen to be a dog, then automatically after my doggish life and my next life, because generally speaking, the lower animals don't accrue more sin because they have so little volition, what's the word? So little agency that the lower animals are not held very responsible for their sinful acts. So by suffering as an animal, you burn off past karma and you're gradually elevated up, 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 and automatically you'll come to the point of attaining a human form of life. So it's easy, it's natural. Or a demigod in heaven, when they're up there from their pious activities and they are enjoying like anything, enjoying wealth and opulence and beauty, Janmaishwarya Shuta Shri, and so much sense gratification. Then when their pious act, just like the animals, their impious activities are being burnt off and they move up to human life. So the demigods also, their pious results are being burnt off through their very intense and excessive enjoyment. And when it's all burnt off, then they come back down to the human form of life. So in one sense, it's automatic, it's easy, but it's sudurlabham because the goal of existence in this material world is to get out, to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to engage in devotional service and return, and through that process, return back to our constitutional position. And that is most auspiciously, most effectively accomplished in the human form of life. So in that sense, it's very difficult to obtain, very rare to obtain. Just like Prabhupada said, like in this room, not in my room because now there's only me, but even when Prabhupada was speaking a room, there might be a few dozen people in human form of life. But you compare that with how many germs and insects and other creatures are there, or on the whole planet. There's whatever it is, I forget now how many billion, is it 7 billion, 8 billion humans now, they say are on planet Earth. But how many insects, how many germs in a drop of water? There's almost more germ living entities than there are human living entities on the entire planet. And even in the human body, I've heard it said that there's greater number of bacteria cells in the human body than there actually are human cells of the human body. So, and what to speak of number of cells, but by comparison of the number of jivas, there's one jiva in my body, there's one jiva that has attained a human form of life. And for this span of 60, 70 years, we'll call him Adam or Acharya Das. But within this body, there's millions and millions of other living entities who are not human, or on the earth, or in the universe. So in that sense, it's Durlabham and Sudurlabham. And the demigods are taking the position that it's Sudurlabham because it's so highly valued that even the demigods want it. And this is also something that's described in other places in the Bhagavatam. This is in the 5th canto, the prayers of the residents of Jambudvipa in the 5th canto. This is chapter 19. I'll just read a couple of verses, but there's quite a few verses where this sentiment is being expressed. Since the human form of life is the sublime position for spiritual realization, again, that one sentence, since the human form of life is the sublime position for spiritual realization, all the demigods in heaven speak in this way. How wonderful it is for these human beings to have been born in the land of Bharatavarsh. They must have executed pious acts of austerity in the past, or the Supreme Personality of God himself must have been pleased with them. Otherwise, how could they engage in devotional service in so many ways? We demigods can only aspire to achieve human births in Bharatavarsh to execute devotional service. But these human beings are already engaged there. So this is a sentiment, and Prabhupada explains in commentaries in that section that it takes great loads and loads of pious activities and sacrifice and all of that to attain the heavenly planet. It's very difficult, the level of punya required to attain the heavenly planets and live as a demigod or in the demigod loka. So much pious activities. But because those demigods are hankering to become humans, that means it takes even greater punya to become a human than it does a demigod, because the demigods are praying, if we have any punya left, let it go towards us becoming humans on this planet. Because this human life on this planet is such a blessing, such the actually ideal situation within the universe to take up devotional service. Krishna came to this planet, spoke Bhagavad Gita, started the parampara. His devotees come here. Mahaprabhu came to this planet, to this earth planet, Bharatavarsh. Bharatavarsh can either refer to the entire planet Earth or it can refer to India. Take it either way. So what an opportunity that even the demigods want this. And how is this? Why do the demigods want it? There's a particular kind of mentality that in the heavenly planets, because the sense gratification is so available and so intense and so long lasting. Here, our sense gratification may last a few years, and even then we get sick of it. But there, it lasts many years of the demigods, and it's of a degree so much we can't even compare with this life. The beauty of the residents of the heavenly planets and their degree of enjoyment is of such a high level that although they're naturally pious and naturally devotees, the tendency to uh, get swept away by your big position, by your big beauty, by your big intelligence, by your big opulence, by your big enjoyment is very prominent. Or as Prabhupada puts it in another purport in the fifth canto, he says that in Brahmaloka, the demigods, they remember Krishna, but that remembrance is swept away by their over-sense gratification. And we've seen that. Lord Brahma, he's a devotee of Krishna. We heard how he heard tapa and did austerities and became actually a perfect devotee of Krishna. But still, his great power and opulence swept away his intelligence when Krishna appeared in Vrindavan, and he thought, "Oh, let me test. Is Krishna really that powerful? I'm more powerful than Krishna. My illusion is more powerful than Krishna's power." Or Indra, naturally a devotee. Prabhupada explains in Krishna book when he's discussing the Indra Yagya, he says that Krishna comes to protect the devotees and destroy the demons. And he said, of course, Indra isn't a demon, he's a devotee, but Krishna still had to teach him a lesson to correct him, because due to his position, his power, he got swept away by illusion. Or like also just like when he disrespected his guru, uh, same thing, because he got swept away by his position and power, because the opulency and the enjoyment is so great there. So therefore, when the demigods have a moment of clarity that they could actually think about their position and what their real goal of life is, they say, oh, this demigod life is actually a distraction, but the human form of life, this is a great opportunity. So this is how the demigods are appreciating this human form of life. And Prabhupada in the purport says the human life is specifically meant for that purpose, for surrendering to Krishna, for engaging in devotional service, for gyan and dharma, as described in today's verse, to pursue these and understand Krishna. And if one doesn't do that, naradhanam bhagavato vitantyamusha. Na aradhanam. We know this word aradhanam, right? Aradhanam sarvesham Vishnu aradhanam pram. Aradhana means worship. So na aradhanam bhagavato. If one doesn't worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead after attaining this human form of life, samohita vitataya bhatamayayate. That person is the most unfortunate and is samohita mayayate. He's bewildered and trapped within the vitataya, within the all-pervading and all-powerful illusory energy of the Lord. So the opportunity is there, and if you don't take the opportunity, then the negative result is there, that you remain in illusion. This is just another way of saying the same thing Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that Daivihesha Gunamayi Mamamaya Durateya, that this powerful illusory energy is there, but Mamevaye Prapadyante Mayametam Tarantite. If you surrender to Krishna, then very easily you can transcend it. Just like the boat, the very perfectly built, constructed boat on the ocean, with the very expert captain and with the favorable winds filling its sails, then very easily you cross over the ocean of nescience. But the corollary to that is that if you don't surrender to Krishna, then Mama Maya Duratya, then so difficult, actually impossible to cross over this illusory energy. And again, therefore, repeating again, Prabhupada says that if you don't take to Krishna consciousness, you're unfortunate. But if you actually have the opportunity and give up that opportunity or don't take that opportunity, then you're the most unfortunate. So this is the human form of life. Also, sometimes Srila Prabhupada would speak about the human energy, that we have like a certain stock of human energy that has to be utilized properly. And if we spoil it, it's the greatest loss. There's a nice verse from the Puranas. Prabhupada only quotes it once in a purport, but I like this verse. Sahanis tan mahachidram samoha sacha vibrama yan muhurtam kshanam vapi vasudevam nachintayat. Sahanis tan mahachidram. There is something that is, hani means loss, and chidra means loss or fault. So there is something that is mahachidram. It's the greatest loss. It's the greatest fault. It's the greatest mistake or shortcoming. I think Prabhupada uses the word anomaly. The greatest anomaly. Samoha sacha vibrama. And the result of that is moha vibrama, complete illusion, complete bewilderment. What is it? What is that thing? That is the greatest anomaly, the greatest sin, the greatest loss and illusion. Yan muhurtam kshanam vapi. Muhurta and kshana both mean like a short period of time. So muhurtam kshana means a short period of time of a short period of time. So a moment. So if you take one moment, Vasudevam nachintayat, and you're not thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the greatest loss. That is the greatest mistake. That is the greatest illusion. Vasudevam na chintayat. One moment not thinking of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or an alternate version of that verse says Vasudevam na kirtayat. One moment not chanting or glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the greatest loss. That is the greatest spoiling of the human energy. Another way to spoil human energy. This is a favorite excerpt from a purport from the first canto, first chapter, 10th verse, the purport. Prabhupada says, overeating, over sense gratification, over dependence on another's mercy, and artificial standards of living sap the very vitality of human energy. So the human life and therefore the human energy is meant for devotional service. But if we're not careful, if over sense gratification, then that human energy is sapped, is drained away. And our humanity, although we may be apparently human. Look, I'm human. I have, 23 pairs of chromosomes. I must be human, right? But if you drain all of your human energy, then you're not even really human. What's that? Ahara nija bayamai tunam cha samanyame tad pashubir naranam. That humans and animals, what's the difference? Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. What's the difference? Human animals, same thing. And the second half of that saying is that it's dharma, devotional service to Krishna, that is the differentiating factor between the humans and the animals. So in one sense, we're just animals. Prabhupada would sometimes joke, he'd say that the dog is running in the street on four legs and you're driving on the street on four rubber tires. What's the difference? The dog is eating some scraps in the street and you're eating some so-called fancy thing in the restaurant. The dog is having sex in the gutter. You're doing it on silk sheets. What's the difference? What's the difference? If the same business is going on, ahara nija bayamaitunam cha, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending, if you drain the humanity the human energy, which is meant for devotional service, drain that out of the human form of life, then you're not even a human, really. Shakespeare wrote, because I like to quote Shakespeare in Hamlet, he wrote, "What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god, the beauty of the world, the paragon of all animals. And yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust?" So this is the dilemma, not dilemma, the paradox that the human form of life is actually so amazing. But if it's sacrificed, that's the greatest loss. So what is it that makes us human? One popular idea was given by Aristotle, that man is the animal rationale, that man is the rational animal, right? Aristotle described, let me see what time it is, if there's enough time to waste on this philosophical stuff. Yeah, so Aristotle, incorrect, but interesting. He described what is called a tripartite soul. That three aspects of the soul. The first he called what was it, the vegetative? No, the nutritive part of the soul. And this refers to just the life force, the biological processes and the oxidation and reduction and digestion and just the basics of life, which are generally seen in all life forms. But this is the only kind of life in lower species like plants. They just exist. They live, they grow, they do all these things, but nothing more. Then there's the instinctual level of the soul, which is the animals. They actually don't just undergo biological processes, but they actually have some behaviors and some activities and things they do, and even some degree of, social organization, but all instinctual. And then the third level is rationality, which is the symptom of human species specifically. And Prabhupada spoke about this. He was a philosophy major, so he was familiar with these concepts. He said in one lecture, "Since a human being is a rational animal, he is born to make inquiries. The greater the number of questions, the greater the advancement of knowledge and science. The whole of material civilization is based on this originally large volume of questions put by young men to their elders. When elderly persons give the proper answers to the questions of the youngsters, civilization makes progress one step after another. The most intelligent man, however, inquires about what happens after death. The less intelligent make lesser inquiries, but the questions of those who are more intelligent go higher and still higher." So if man is the rational animal, the height of that rationality is to ask about what happens after death, ask about what's beyond the body, what's beyond the material world, who's the master and creator of it all. This is the uh, height of rationality. So if man is a rational animal, but does not take to devotional service, again, that rationality is compromised. Just like I've quoted this before, and I love it because it's such a great Prabhupada moment. Prabhupada was having a mock argument with his disciples, and he was saying there's no happiness, there's no enjoyment in this material world. So the disciples, I think it was maybe Revati Nandana, but I'm not certain. One of the devotees he was with said, "Of course there's happiness in this material world. Everyone says there's happiness in this material world. The politicians, the travel agents, everyone says there's happiness in this material world." And Prabhupada says, "Not everyone, I don't say." And so the devotee says, "Oh, well, you're the only one." And Prabhupada said, "Yes, that is because I am the only intelligent man." So the rational man will be able to understand, like Prabhupada, that it's not all encaged within this material world, that there's something beyond. And as he said, those who are more intelligent go higher and higher still. And if you don't go higher and higher, then you're not that intelligent. You're not that rational. Therefore, the human form of life, what's the purpose? That the intelligent, the rational ones inquire and ask the questions. Kamasya nendriya pritir, labo jiveta yavata. Don't desire just sense gratification, again, like an animal. Labo jiveta yavata, just desire enough to live properly in this world. Don't desire excessive sense gratification, just desire enough to have a decent maintenance of your life. Jivasya tattva jigyasya. The real purpose is tattva jigyasya, inquiry about the absolute truth. Nartaryasche hakarma. That's the goal of your work. That's the goal of your life, not those other things, sense gratification and collecting money and collecting partners and collecting pride and collecting influence and all these other things, collecting document letters after your name, PhD, MD, MA, BA. No, not sense gratification, just desire just enough to live in this material world as a human being and devote your human energy, your stock of human energy. You devote to jivasya tattva jigyasya. You inquire about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Or other things, people try to differentiate humans from animals. Philosophers discuss this. They describe art, that humans create art, or humans have language and communication, that humans have morality or self-awareness, so many different things that they offer as distinguishing humans from animals, like art. Art is certainly a great creation of human beings, but that also tasmat yogaya yujasya yoga karmasu koshalam. That devotional service is actually the art of all work. So you could paint a beautiful painting, make a sculpture. These are certainly noteworthy and praiseworthy things. I've been known to visit a museum or two in my day to admire these things. But the real art, the highest art of all work, is devotional service to Krishna, because that's the fulfillment of the human form of life. That's the purpose of the human form of life. That makes it the most perfect art because it's fulfilling the human purpose. Or language or literature. Just like that verse, the greatest anomaly is Vasudeva Nakirtayat, a moment not given to Nakirtayat, not speaking about glorifying Krishna. Or in yesterday's verse, or no, I guess it was Tuesday's verse, Lord Brahma was talking about hu kata, that bad kata, bad words. That's not the perfection of humanity that you could write. Again, literature is a great contribution, and I've read and continue to read some of that literature. But ultimately, the purpose of that literature is to glorify Krishna. And that's what distinguishes the humans from the animals. So this is the benediction, the opportunity of being a human being when it's utilized properly. Now, in one sense, for the demigods, this is a little bit a case of the demigods sort of thinking that the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. Because we can also look at the demigods and say, oh, your intelligence is so great that you have the opportunity to understand and study the Vedas and worship Krishna, and they do every sacrifice. And not only that, they'll do a sacrifice, and at least sometimes Vishnu himself personally, in person, will come and attend that sacrifice. Or Brahma, he's saying, oh, these humans, but he can go to the shore of the Milk Ocean and he can actually converse with Vishnu himself. Lord Vishnu appears as the younger brother, Upendra, of the demigods. So the demigods also, we can also look at the demigods and say, oh, those demigods have such an amazing opportunity. So it's a little bit of a case of the grass is greener on the other side of the fence. But we are here in this human life on this human plane in this human planet, middle on Earth, middle planet of Earth, not Middle Earth, uh, that we're here and we could think, wow, what a benediction we have. What an amazing opportunity we have. But it's there for everyone. It's there for the demigods, and they also take advantage. Matak Jnanam Apohanam Cha. In all species of life, Krishna is giving knowledge and remembrance and forgetfulness, or more specifically, Tesham Satata Yuktanam Bhajatam Priti Purvakam Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenam Upayanti. In any form of life, if you approach Krishna, if you surrender to Krishna, he gives the intelligence by which we can come to him. That's true of the demigods and for us. Or Tesham Evanu Kampartam Aham Agyanatam Jam Tama. That Krishna himself can destroy the darkness in everyone's heart and illuminate it with the lamplight of knowledge so that they can attain Krishna. So that's actually available anywhere and to everyone, not just on this planet. But still, what mercy to be on this Earth planet uh, and not only on this Earth planet, but to be here now. Of course, we may have been here before at another time, but to be here now when Srila Prabhupada came. What's that? The example given, like if a turtle is swimming in the ocean, in the whole wide ocean, and there's one piece of wood with a knothole in it floating in the ocean, and there's one turtle swimming in the ocean. And if that turtle surfaces somewhere in the ocean and just by chance its head pops up through the knothole in the piece of wood, the chance of that happening is like the chance of attaining a human birth and coming into contact with Krishna consciousness. So that's also another thing, that the demigods are praising this human form of life. But Manusanam Sahasreshu Kastid Yatati Siddhaye, even you attain this human form of life, how few amongst us are actually taking this opportunity of the human form of life. So we glorify the opportunity of the human form of life, but it's not a guarantee, it's an opportunity. And this is the meaning of mercy. Tesham evanu kampartam in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, showing mercy to them. So anukampa. So attaining this human form of life is that great mercy. Now, mercy from Krishna does not mean that, oh, Krishna gave me mercy. That means he's going to do everything. I don't have to do anything anymore. That's Krishna's mercy. That's not what mercy is. Mercy means being given an opportunity which we otherwise would not have had or otherwise may not have been qualified for, but we receive an opportunity. That's mercy. And we can take that opportunity or we can ignore that opportunity. This is mercy. That yes, we're in this human form of life and we could say, oh my God, even Brahma wants it. So what kind of opportunity is this? Let me take this opportunity even more and more seriously. Mercy, like I said, mercy is not just a lazy man's out that, oh, I don't have to do it. Krishna will do it by his mercy. Or like it's a get out of jail free card. That's not mercy. Mercy means being given an opportunity which you may not have otherwise got or may not have otherwise been qualified for, an opportunity to attain the greatest thing, the most precious thing, prema pumarta mahan, the greatest wealth of love of Krishna. And that's human, Devata, higher planet, lower planet. That's there for everyone to obtain that opportunity somehow. Narayana Paraksarve Nakutaschana Bibiti Swarga Apavarga Narakesh. That the devotee who is serious enough, who is surrendered enough, human form of life, yes, what an amazing opportunity. But also in the heavenly planets, same business. Oh, what about in the heavenly planets? Same business. So this is how we can understand, or like that verse from the 11th canto, Durlabam Sadurlabam. In one sense, it's ordinary. And in another sense, it's the most precious thing. So we understand it like this. We take inspiration from the demigods. And we take this opportunity, which the human life has given us, which coming at the time when Srila Prabhupada was preaching has given us, for coming just a few hundred years after Mahaprabhu has given us, for coming just after Krishna's appearance at the end of Dwapara Yuga, historically speaking, not very long ago, although 5,000 years is a long time. So what mercy, meaning what opportunity do we have? We also heard a few weeks ago describing the creation of the universal time situation, how the sanya between any sanya is a time for spiritual activities. So we're presently in this Yuga Sanya between Dwapara and Kali Yuga. So all of these, so much mercy and human form of life, so much like an avalanche of mercy. So if we take it, we're the most fortunate. And if we don't take it or if we misuse it, then we're the most unfortunate. Hare Krishna, thank you very much, everybody, for your very kind attention. If there's any questions or comments or discussion, we can do that now. Anything?
Thanks, Prabhu, for a wonderful film.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Yes, Vishnu Gita Prabhu.
Thank you, Acharya Prabhu. The verse was talking about, how humans were specially had a special opportunity, as you described. Is a demigod included in the human species?
Oh, that's interesting. I was actually thinking about that when I was reading the verse. In one sense, the demigods and the demons and the apsaras and all these different persons are all different varieties of humans in that sense. And actually, we also had a verse also in an earlier chapter just a few weeks ago describing all the different kinds of species, that there's the plants, the animals, and it's described that humans are actually one species. But then we also know that there's the 400,000 different species of human beings. And the definition of species is not necessarily the same as what we biologically call species nowadays. So I thought about that also, what you're asking. And my understanding is that for the purpose of Lord Brahma's ecstatic prayers and appreciation, he's dividing that, yeah, demigods are also a kind of minutia or kind of human, but for the purpose of this analysis, he's dividing according to humans on different planets, that the ones born on this middle planet are especially have an opportunity. But there's another way of looking at that. We're all humans, but he's dividing like that for the sake of his ecstatic analysis, I think. Does that make sense?
I agree. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? Question or comment from any of the humans out there? Yes.
Thank you so much, Acharya Prabhu.
Hare
For
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
wonderful class, and coming out of this class with immense gratitude for you teaching us this, and just for recognizing the rare opportunity of this human form of life. The other day, my son had to take some antibiotic, and they said that you should take some probiotic along with it because it can affect your gut. So I went to the store and I got him some probiotics, and I looked at the label and it said each capsule has 15 billion strands of bacteria. And I thought, wow, and there's 30 capsules in here, and there must be at least 50 bottles on the shelf, and this is just one store in all of America
Yeah,
that
that's a
have
lot
it.
of jivas.
And it made me take kind of stop and reflect for a moment, thinking, am I really seeing everything that's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, am I really taking this for granted? And you could be one of these strands of bacteria sitting in somebody's gut,
And we probably have been in the past,
yeah.
maybe more than once.
And then, like as you said, you get to the human form of life, and we're just so consumed with, the next football game and, making money and, just doing so many other things. And you begin to feel some responsibility of like, how do we get this word out? that how do we make this attractive for people
Mm.
that don't misuse this human form of life? We got here. So you could say like, it's like, did you ever hit the lottery? Like, yeah. Like these are much bigger
Yeah.
odds than the Powerball. Getting
Yeah.
to the human form of
Yeah,
life.
numerically speaking, sure.
Yeah. And but then how many people are really interested in hearing about Krishna? Out of
Yeah.
all the people that are here, and I guess part of our responsibility is to try to give people the opportunity to hear and try to make the presentation of Krishna consciousness something that they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to leave behind the football game or the car show or you know, interest in increasing my financial placement in this world, and at least be interested in saying maybe there's something to transcendental life. Maybe there is something to the soul.
Yeah.
Let me read about it." And anyway, that was my reflection. And this was like perfect timing hearing about this,
Yeah.
because I just had that moment a couple of days ago.
Yeah. That's a really nice point, that people aren't interested, but they're in the human form of life. So that means that the possibility is there that if you could somehow reach out and, touch that real human energy that everyone has and direct it, that's nice. Another thing that I was thinking of as you were saying it is that as the demigods are sort of sidetracked by the great opulence and therefore forget about Krishna and think, oh, this human form, if I could take birth on the Earth planet or Bharat, we're kind of those of us who live in the Western world and in America in particular, we're almost a little bit like those demigods. Not that it's so great, but compared to a third world situation, we also have a higher level of opulence, a higher level of opportunity here, a higher level of sense gratification. And we can also get sidetracked just like the demigods do by living in this, comparatively speaking, heavenly or opulent position. So we should also be careful of that. Like just as the demigods have to be careful, we have to be careful also. And that's also why preaching is sometimes so hard in the Western world. But they're human beings. That means the possibility is there. Thanks. That was a nice appreciation. Something else? Mother Vindyavali, I saw your hand up for something.
Oh, thank you very much, Prabhu, for
Thank you.
nice things you told. Even demigods are thinking, who are we? Thinking our this material life. We sometimes tempted to all these things, big houses, big this thing. I want to have so much money, this, that. So that is very much thinking of like Krishna consciousness. It's very hard. Human life is very rare,
Yeah.
and we're not appreciating that human life. That how rare it is. We
Yeah.
sometimes misuse it.
Yeah.
That's what I feel sometimes. But we go to Krishna consciousness and think
Yeah.
of Krishna. He is the one who does everything.
Yeah.
He is our Paramatma. So that's what my feeling also all the time. When I do something also, I think, I don't know whether knowingly, unknowingly, I might be doing sins. I don't know. So I always pray God that just forgive me, whatever I did unknowingly,
Jai.
and help me out. Thank you very
Jai.
much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it's as you were saying that, I was thinking that like this is the point in one, not in one sense, that's the point of this verse, today's verse,
Yeah.
is to make us as humans appreciate, Brahma's speaking this, he's speaking it out of his own appreciation and ecstasy, but it's also to wake us up and say, wow, I'm a human. I didn't have to be a human. And if I'm not careful, I may not be human again, and I can lose the opportunity for a long time. So that's nice to appreciate like that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. A nice class.
Hare Krishna. Anything else? Question or comment? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for your kind attention. I hope everyone up in Philly is doing well and staying warm, staying safe and happy. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha,
Hare Krishna.
Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Thank you.